myself and the show. My name is Mauricio Barrera, and we are watching Voices of Strength, our series, which highlights the victims of police killings across the United States. So each week we focus on a different victim and we talk directly to their families so that we can hear the truth behind their loved ones' killings and their experiences behind this. Um, my name is Marissa Barrera, and I started this because my brother Michael Barrera was killed by police in our hometown of Woodland in 2017. Many times people will hear of a few names of those killed by police in the country, but there are a ton more that go unheard of. Kristine Lee Rose is with us today, and she's going to be helping us share her son Jessie Lee Rose's story. So, Kristine, thank you for being here. And if you want to just briefly introduce yourself, introduce your son, and where you guys are from, and then we'll get started.
Okay. Hi, thank you, Marissa, so much for this forum so I can speak out and tell our side, the true story of what happened to my son. We lived in Utica, New York. We had to leave there because of the police harassment and such. My son was Jessie Lee Rose. He was known as Jessie Rose, mostly just Jessie, and he was 19, and he was very handsome. He had a lot of friends. He was very intelligent. He was quiet and shy. He was especially close to his brother Jared. They were only 13 months apart, and he was very protective of his little sister, who was 11 at that time. He was very good with computers. I miss him so many ways, and that is one of them. He used to fix them for extra money. That's how good he was. He was planning on upgrading his computer and his music keyboards that he had attached to them and everything, because he was writing lyrics and working on making music. He was doing really innovative things. And it was just a matter of weeks. His dad was going to get a large settlement, and he was going to give him a large amount of money so he could do that. And he was really looking forward to that. And he was okay. He liked to play lacrosse also, and he was a fast runner. He loved camping, and he had all the tents and gear and everything. He took care of that for the family when we'd all go camping and stuff. He was really good with that too. His brothers and him had thousands of Legos when they were little, and when he was younger, his brother and him, they used to play army, and with the other kids in the neighborhood, they had the army tents, everything, that we had them in our backyard and all that. And he read a whole science encyclopedia set when he was little. All the boys did, because I did homeschool him for a few years here and there. He was very helpful around the house. One time when he was 15, his dad was working a lot, so he took it upon himself to finish up putting up a stockade fence, and he did it all by himself. He did a beautiful job. At 15, he did that. He was a great kid. Always would help me put the decorations, because we decorated a lot at the different holidays and such. He used to create art out of using odds and ends, like jewelry pieces, whatever else. Is really, really, that also was innovative. He was extremely creative and artistic. He did put up some graffiti that said "Peace in the Streets," because that is what he believed in, peace. He was a very peaceful, kind person. And on to the story where we had noticed for several years that we were, there was just strange behavior from the police, and we didn't know why. And then it became obvious when my oldest son, he was named as a witness in a police brutality case against Utica PD. We're from Utica. That's where we lived at the time when it happened. And so it kind of made sense to us then why they were doing that to us. And so Jury did testify, but what they were doing was going after Jessie, because Jury was an iron worker at the time. He worked out of town. So they were harassing Jessie, and they arrested him like a week before Jury was to testify on false charges. We hired a lawyer to fight that. He was having problems with his girlfriend all of a sudden. A few weeks before, few weeks before this case was to come up for Jury to testify, his girlfriend she had issues I don't, want to get too much into her issues, but she did have mental health issues and drug issues that we did not know about for the longest while, but it became apparent with her behaviors and such. And so jury did testify, and the police stalking and that kind of thing continued. And it was 8 weeks later when Jesse went up to the park to meet his girlfriend. It was like the 14th of the month. They had started going out on February 14th, a year and a half before that. So they'd always meet up like on the 14th and whatever and wherever, And he goes up there and he never comes home. Before he left, he asked his father if he could have a couple cigarettes, and he gave him 4. He left a couple on his computer and went up there, and we never saw him again. And the story goes that there was a 911 call that said a white man with a long gun ran through the park shooting at the woods. And it also said, because I heard the 911 call at the lawyer's office, that he left the area. This isn't a really big park, okay? Just a regular inner city kind of park. And so Ellis is called. He goes there and he goes over and he talks to the one who called and made that call. And it was a retired police officer from the UPD who was also a probation officer, from what I'm told. That's what I know about that. It's hard to find things out. They keep everything as secret as they can. No transparency in New York State. And then he goes right over to the park where my son was sitting on a slide, the end of a slide facing the other way. And he goes directly running into the park, he says, put your hands up, show your hands. Don't know if my son heard that or what happened, but he was shooting, he shot my son directly. He was shooting from the road, some witnesses say. He just went right in shooting. And my son was shot through the palm of the hand and in the chest. They did a complete cover-up, but I know this because of how we found witnesses. But let me not forget to mention how they investigated, the UPD investigated themselves. They never notified us for 5.5 hours that this happened to our son. We had no idea that happened up at the park, and it wasn't even that far from our house. And nobody let us know. And we were home. It was a Sunday. Mike was doing yard work. I was out in the yard in the pool. And so they notify us, and we go up to the hospital, and they said he had died, and they're preparing him so we could see him. And then we went in to see him. They wouldn't let us near him. The police was standing over him. We could only kind of get close to him. They wouldn't let us near him. I think that they didn't want us to, move the blanket or hug him or see what they really did to him, the full extent, because they had done it, they were working on their cover up. So the next thing was, there was a vigil a couple of days later at the park. And people did come up to me and tell me, they just saw a backpack, a phone. Because I was asking anybody that may have been around, did you see a gun? No, they didn't see a gun. They just saw a backpack, a phone, didn't see a gun. And so later on that evening of the vigil, I was home. And my oldest son, Jory, he was at the park, at the vigil. And the park was being watched by law enforcement, sheriffs, UPD, pretty much all of them. And he goes to leave 11-ish to come home. And they gave chase. As soon as he's leaving the park, they gave chase. So he made it back to the house, which was, 4 or 5 blocks. He parked the car on the corner right next to our house. He unrolled the window, put his hands out. They ran over to the car, they pulled him out, and they started beating him right there. Now, I was in the house, we were in the house, it was, 11-ish, we didn't know this was going on. A little boy from across the street came over and knocked on our door and told us they've got your other son now.
My goodness.
So I threw my bathrobe on, I run over there, and I see they've got Jory in the sheriff's deputy's car, at the sheriff's car at that point. And obviously, I can't get him out or anything, he's in the car, he's in their custody. Didn't know why. I see his car sitting there. So I go to park the car in the driveway. It's only like right there. They wouldn't let me do it. They took his car. And this was a couple days after they had shot Jessie down. And so we bailed him out. Then he went back, got his car. Then I go back, that next Sunday, I go back to the park at the same time, same day of the week, same time that it happened, to see who might be around. I could question who could, would anybody be there that, they were there that day, that time. And I came across the pool guy. He took care of the pool, and I went over and I seen him. And I said, were you here last Sunday? And asked him if he saw what happened. And he said, he heard something. He comes out and he looks and he saw Ellis cuffing my son. I said, did you see a gun? He's like, no, I didn't see a gun. I saw him cuffing him. He had him down, face down, and he was cuffing him. So then I guess about a week or 2 weeks go by, and the councilman from the area comes by, and he was just, doing election things, running, whatever. And I talked to him a little bit, and he said, you better make sure you get the hospital report before it disappears. So I did. I ordered it. I had to go up there, pay for it, order it, and it came in a few weeks after. And the hospital report, actually, I run into this one, I have to go back and cover how I found another very important witness, not just the pool guy that saw what they were doing to him. My daughter had a couple of dreams about a saint that was from the local church. She had seen the picture up on the church, so she knew, and the saint had come to her. It was in a couple of dreams. So I said, well, we better go to the church. Let's go talk to the priest, tell him about what happened and about your dream. It was pretty, really deep. So I talked to him, and he said, I just got shivers because I know about this. He said, he was kicking and dragging him too.
Oh my goodness.
And then he took my name and number because he knew the person who had seen it.
Wow.
And a couple of days, she called me. And she told me, she lived directly across the street from the park where it happened. And she heard something going on out there. She looks out her front door and she sees Officer Ellis shoot my son down in the chest, and he had his hands up.
Wow.
Okay, so then move on to, I get the hospital report. All through the hospital report, it says my son was shot in the chest, and he was shot through the palm of his hand.
Oh my goodness.
So Ellis says, he said, show your hands. One of the witnesses from the vigil, people told me different things, did tell me that. I heard him say, I'm not doing anything.
My goodness.
So he shot my son down in cold blood with his hands up. But that's not the story that you'll get from the UPD, the medical examiner's office, the whole system all the way through, including our lawyer, just went up with this ridiculous made-up story that he supposedly had a gun and shot himself at the same time the police officer was shooting him, committed suicide.
My goodness.
And my son did not have a history of mental health issues. He did not ever try to commit suicide or anything like that. He was not like that. Me and his dad, Mike, were completely in shock. We're still in shock.
Kristine.
Yes.
So I just want to reiterate a little bit of this. We have a couple more people that just joined. So I'm going to kind of just sum up and just tell me if all of this is right so far. So far we have Jessie, and thank you for sharing about him in the beginning and, his artistic side, his, just the Jessie, that's your son, him best.
Yes, he was a wonderful person. He was very thoughtful.
And I do want to share with the audience, this is a teenager, like a 19-year-old. To me, this it hits harder when I see, younger, he's a kid to me. I have a sister who's 18, and sitting at the park, just the story. So it's really one of those ones. But leading up to your son being murdered by Utica Police Department officer, your other son, your older son, had experienced, he had witnessed a police brutality happening.
Yes.
He testified in civil court on behalf, against the police department.
Yeah, against Officer Berger. And he was one of the officers that beat him that night. He was
Oh,
there
God.
that night and beat him when they pulled him out of the car.
Wow.
I'm trying not to forget so many important details.
Yeah, and it's hard. There's so much, and this happened again for the people watching in 2013, right? That's what yeah.
Yes,
And
2013.
yeah, okay. So they had been harassed. Leading up from the cops themselves. So
Yep.
then the
He
story
was false
happened.
arrested and he was brutalized during the arrest by Officer Simpy. Now, Officer Simpy went to police academy with Officer Ellis at the same time. They were
Buddies.
buddies.
Yep, buddies. So if you can tell me, just briefly sum up that first narrative you heard and how you heard again, and then after all these years, what you've put together, what your version of what you came up. Can you share that again for the people listening?
Yeah, within weeks, we knew the truth, but we couldn't get the truth out, and we couldn't get things to be done truthfully. They just did a cover up, and they went with a cover up, and we tried so hard in whatever way we could get justice, and we haven't gotten it so far. They gave him, after years of civil suit, they gave him qualified immunity. And also with the cover up, okay, there's some certain facts I have to say right now.
Yes.
I do believe it was a setup. Because of these facts, they came out in the deposition of the officer. There was already an ambulance waiting down on the other side of the woods there already before my son was shot. Ellis came like 1 minute on the scene, and right behind him, backup was like 1 minute. Seriously, 1 minute was that. Okay. So then when they bring him, on the stretcher, they run him down through the woods. Instead of like having a normal thing, you would think the ambulance would be called. It would go the street way, the way the cops did. No, they had the ambulance waiting down the other side of the woods. And I seen from an aerial view photo that they were carrying my son on the stretcher down through the woods. They were headed through the woods with him. There is some time lost with that really don't know what they did to him.
My goodness.
Okay. Then to top it all off, Anthony Ellis's mother was the vice president and trauma coordinator for St. Elizabeth's Hospital, where they brought my son. His mother ran the hospital, basically.
Wow.
A very important position, to say the least. She then, 8 days later, was given a job with the Utica County Health Department, and she was director there. She was there for 7 years. She retired just this past December. And now she's working as a director of health at the Utica County Sheriff's Office.
Wow.
Her, Anthony Ellis, this woman's husband, is a retired state trooper. The state troopers have been the most with the stalking all the time.
Wow.
But it's all police agencies. Even though we move 4 hours away for the safety of our children, of our family, to try to do the best we could, even though we lost Jessie in such a horrible way that no family should have something done like that. And then this just continues and continues, and you just want justice and truth. And so I find that, the combinations of all of that and everything, and so many more things that my son was set up and killed in that he was set up and shot down. And then and another thing, what would have been customary is he should have been sent to the Albany Medical Center, where they could have saved his life. According to the medical report, after a while, they just gave up and stuffed him with sponges and left him laying there. During the OR operating, when they're taking the bullets out, there was a police officer in there. There was a police officer in the operating room, and they were handing the bullet fragments off to him.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wonder what he could have done with the bullet fragments.
My goodness.
It's just so many questions, and we still trying to get justice, and miss Jessie terribly. His, like I say, his siblings were close to him. We were a close family. Yeah, so everything from my oldest son being named as a witness, testifying, to this cover-up, murder and cover-up. Obviously, politicians were involved. Oh yeah, we can't forget the fact that the mayor was in the park when the UPD investigated themselves. Now, UPD should have had the sheriffs or the troopers take over the investigation. They were right there. No, they investigated themselves.
Wow.
And the mayor was in the park behind the yellow tape for 20 minutes during the investigation.
Wow. I have not
And
heard
that's
of
a fact.
something like that. So,
And strange things like neighbors of ours across the street said, it was like a couple weeks later when we weren't home, they saw the mayor looking over into our yard, into our, at our property, because he does this crazy thing where they do walkthroughs through the neighborhoods and whatever. And he decided a few weeks after my son was murdered to walk through the neighborhood and go look peek into my yard when we weren't home over the fence. Swear to God. Swear to God.
Wow.
It's hard to believe the extent of the.
I mean, we are familiar and know that, cops, and they are like professional stalkers and stuff, but this is the first that I've heard of a mayor participating against the family also. And then back to the mother being being a big person at that hospital. I forget the title you said, but this just goes back to the connections that these people have, and for them to take your son to that hospital instead of the one that could have been, better to help.
His life. And even then, by bringing him to St. Elizabeth's, that wasn't the closest hospital to the park. It was like a half a mile to the closest hospital, but they brought him over to the other part of the city, which is probably about 3 miles. Where Anthony Ellis's mother worked, and she was the head of the vice president and trauma coordinator for the hospital.
That's disgusting.
And we weren't called for almost 6 hours. They had my 19-year-old son in there fighting for his life. They obviously weren't trying to save his life, because they should have sent him to the Albany Medical Center or even to the Syracuse hospitals, where they could actually save his life. And in this report, yes, they stuffed him with sponges. That's what they did.
It sounds like the cop needed his mommy to save him after he murdered your son.
Yeah. Oh, and he wasn't able to graduate college. He didn't have what you need to graduate college. He tried and couldn't do it. He also worked as a carpet layer. Then he couldn't do that anymore. So, mommy and daddy get him into the UPD. And he had already had a lawsuit against him from the year before for a civil rights lawsuit from the year before. He had abused a woman and her husband, I believe. I'm not sure the exact story behind it, but right here, it was July 11th of the year before. And it only names him too. So, usually they'll name the police chief and everybody, no, it just names Anthony Ellis. And so, but they kept him out in the street knowing that he was like that. I heard from people, like I say, I went talking to people and they told me that he would yell at people. He was violent. He shouldn't have been in the street, but they kept him in the street. And then they, allowed him to do what he did.
Wow. And this is sickening. Over the years, I've met so many great families, including yourself. And this is the common theme. These officers, a lot of them already had complaints against them. And we know how hard it is to even make a damn complaint against an officer. It's damn near impossible. So, it just really feels like it's purposely. And I just want to make it clear. And I know a lot of people in the comments, which we'll get to some in a little bit. Absolutely. We believe your family. We believe with the facts, especially that have came to light, that Jessie was set up and what they did to him was absolutely disgusting and wrong. And I'm so sorry your family had to go through this and is still going through it.
Yeah.
Gosh. Let me go ahead and I'll hit some of the comments and then we'll get back to chatting. Guys that are leaving comments, we love you guys and appreciate you all, but I won't be able to get to all of them. Just gonna pick out a few. Let's say, people are just upset here. There are other impacted families who have lived through this. So we know we got Yolanda McNear. That was the beginning of the victimization of the victim's family, and that she's going back to how they treated you guys after and what happened to your son afterwards. We got hashtag Forced Trajectory Project. Listen to the families, and thank you for that. This is what this is all about: us getting our truths out there. And let's see, hands up, don't shoot. Yes. Hashtag that from a handful of people. Let's see. Jason Ray is saying the local news will always repeat the cop narrative.
Yes, they do.
We know that very well. We know that. Let's see. People are just saying hi, sending you love, and cops lie. Some families are relating to you. We have Emily Gonzalez. They did that with my son. They did not take him to the closest hospital. Gosh. That's just the common theme, and we know why now. We know why they want them to die.
Yep. Yeah, they're not trying to save their life. No.
Gosh, it's I know you have met a lot of families over the years, and I know you have been pushing. So, gosh, it's hard to hear sometimes, but it's not unbelievable. We know this is the reality. Okay, let's go ahead and let's move forward. So I know you shared about the civil case that you guys went through, and that's how you learned some more stuff, right? Yes. Is there anything else through that you want to share, like your family experience with that part of it? There are other families that are newer that haven't went through the courts. So if there's anything you want to touch on for them or to share about your guys' experience.
Well, the real story didn't really get out and go through the courts. It was the made up story, the cover up story. We couldn't get the lawyer to just go with what we have, the evidence that we know. They just went with their made up story, their cover up story. So, and then of course with the cover up story, they got their qualified immunity. And
so your lawyer was also,
it's like the whole system, the way it's set, we have to realize that it's works for them, not for us. It works against us. There's nothing about it that they're going to, and this is including the judges, this is all of them. They don't care about our loved ones. And you gotta remember, these people, they not only work together, a lot of them are intermarried, they're their buddies, and then the families. Politicians are in with the judges, and they nominate the judges. Judges should be elected. Just all kinds of, just everything is just set against us, the people. And it shouldn't be like that. We have to have major changes with the way the police are, but the whole system as well.
Gosh, that's absolutely true. And sadly, we find out as we're navigating through this. I do want to touch back and point out, you guys, from the beginning, you had to go be your own investigator, trying to talk to witnesses, trying to figure out what happened. And that's just a start.
Oh, and I did, I made an appointment with the FBI because I had this, evidence, and I want my son's case. This is like a few weeks into it. I called the FBI because I've got this evidence. I need it investigated because in college, I have an associate's of science degree, and I studied a lot of psychology, criminology, sociology, and I knew this FBI is supposed to investigate the police if there's police misconduct and such. So I went to I made an appointment with the FBI. And I go over there for the appointment, and I'm followed by the UPD. And the
Wow.
UPD sits outside the FBI office. And I go into the office for my appointment. And then this guy comes out who, the best way I could say, was typical kind of a Utica guy, was an FBI agent. Not a good attitude. And all he seemed to, when I talked to him, all he seemed to want to know was, you could tell he just wanted to know the witness, not because he wanted to do an investigation. You know, he was saying sarcastic things. He just wanted to go intimidate the witnesses. I could tell. So I'm not giving him my witness name because,
No.
for one, I got the UPD sitting outside the FBI office. I'm here because I know through my education in college and whatever, you know, the FBI is supposed to investigate these criminals and criminal actions of a police. And all I got was treated poorly by this man. So I just left. I didn't give him the information I had. He wasn't going to do anything. It's like, oh, mothers, you know, that kind of attitude, you know.
My
He wasn't
goodness.
going to do anything. It was terrible. And then I even talked to the secretary that worked there. I'm like, I was followed because I knew I was being followed all the time and harassed all the time. Even before they killed Jessie, they were following, who was stalking my family, my son. And so I said to the secretary, the UPD sitting outside. And she says, I've never seen that happen before.
Wow.
So that's another example. And believe me, the stories go on forever of how badly they have stalked and treated us. And it was before they killed my son. And if you want me to believe for 1 minute that someone is stalked by law enforcement like that, gets false charges on him and beaten up before his older brother is to testify, and then 8 weeks later winds up gunned down by a police, and you don't want me, I mean, of course they killed him.
Yep.
And any other of their cover-up stories is just that. And they got their whole system, and unfortunately there's just all sorts of, just a lot of mockery of the truth, mockery of the family. And so it's just important we all, and I'm getting my story out there. It's important we all do. There's also a lot in common with each story. They're not all the same, but there are things in common. And the more we do this, hopefully more we can keep fighting for change.
Yep. Yeah. You know what? I want to thank you for sharing that part too about the FBI, because a lot of people think, you know, hey, well, since they're not getting charged in, you know, your county, the DA is not pressing charges, take it to the FBI, take it higher. And then, you know, people try, and this is the kind of stuff that happens. And it just, it shows how deep this really is. And you're right, as you said earlier, they're not for the people. It's not for us. Everything that happens along the way when our loved ones are killed by police, it's very calculated, and they do that shit on purpose.
They do.
We know this.
They do.
Everyone in the comments.
Oh yeah, it was conspired, constructed, carried out, and covered up.
Yep.
That's exactly what they did.
Yes. I'm gonna hit a couple
Anthony
comments.
Ellis's hands were literally covered in blood, and he was wiping them off in the grass. That's something else I was told.
My goodness.
Yes. This is horrible. Horrible what they did to my son. Horrible what they're doing to people's loved ones, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out again, you know, as you shared, you guys were being harassed and stalked leading up. He had that false arrest, that brutality against him as well. Then he was killed, and for them to try to say suicide, that shit is just, I just can't believe that almost. But you know, it's not, Jessie's isn't the only one like that. You know, I've heard other families that were there, and the cops still try to lie and say suicide.
Yeah.
So, you know, for people watching that aren't familiar with this, you know, hear our words and listen to us. This really could be anyone. Our families, you know, Kristine, all of our families, like I meet these families, and we're just regular families, you know. I can see
we're just average folks.
Yes.
We really were just average law abiding folks, doing what we're supposed to do, you know. And they
Gosh.
just, you know, murder your loved one, and they do everything in their power to destroy you too. They try to hurt you all the more. They try to drag your family through the mud with undermining slander that they get out in the community. Oh, terrible, terrible.
Absolutely.
Lies.
I'm
Professional
gonna
liars, you can't believe them. You just cannot believe police. I don't care if
professional
people think
liars.
they're the good ones. You can't believe any of them. They're professional liars. They'll lie in your face.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna hit a couple comments real quick. I know we're getting
Okay.
a bunch. Force Trajectory Project sharing the same thing happened with Nicholas Jr. He was killed in Brooklyn, transported to a further hospital in Manhattan. Yolanda, again, we have her sharing her comment. Only want one story to be told, the Cox story. And
Yes.
that's true. And they put it into the media. Everybody eats it up. And then they hate us for speaking out.
Another thing they did was with the early news reports, they did a complete blackout on them. You can't find them, you know, like within days they were off the internet, because we were trying to save stuff and collect stuff because we knew they killed them.
Yes.
And they just disappeared, gone. So all you get is
Yes.
those later reports they came up with, their narrative. You don't get the
Yes.
early ones that said what they did.
You know what? Thank you for mentioning that, and just highlight that for families, you know, the newer
Yes.
families. Even, you know, if your loved one was not, it's not such a new killing. That's actually something I did when my brother was killed. And, you know, just right away, we know
Yes.
that it's some
Oh,
shady
yeah.
shit going on. So I saved some of the articles. And then when I try to look, you know, looked up a couple years later down the line, they're not there anymore.
Yes. That's exactly what happened to us.
So important,
Yeah,
new
yeah.
families, save everything, document everything. If you're being followed, if you even suspect that you're being followed, write down, have a journal, write that down, keep track of everything. This stuff is real. And we're dealing with real life killers here.
Yeah, and it's sad that media is complicit in this.
Yep.
They should be better than that.
They absolutely are. That's what I say. They're a part of this. Everyone that we end up dealing with, all the officials are part of it.
Yeah.
It can be from the hospital to the coroner's office, the DA's office, the judges, all of them. And then you mentioned too, your lawyer, right? You had a lawyer.
Yeah. He didn't do it the way we wanted it done. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm gonna do a couple more comments real quick. We got Miss Barron, her son Mauricio for this hospital as well. Sandra Muir, her 3 kids and her mom-in-law, who is her neighbor, all pulled over this month by Fort Lupton. They're still being harassed after their loved one was killed. Richard Petty Perez Richmond, his family is in the house. Thank you guys for being here. And then let's see, Jason Reyes. He capitalizes department in the nation has the same cookie cutter response to officer involved shootings. You can fill in the rest. FTP. And yes, I agree. Let's see, Roberto, as you know, we become the investigators, and in turn we become the targets, subject to continual harassment. Gosh, thank you guys. There's a whole bunch of comments, so I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but Kristine, when you later, you know, today, tomorrow, you just feel free to go through the comments and see all the people leaving you comments for your family and in support of Jessie. We have another family sharing their lawyer. That's Yolanda. Their lawyer was a sellout joke. There's so much there, and you know, these for the people watching too that aren't impacted families, just know that all these comments, they're coming from impacted families, the majority of them, and we all live in different states, even so far from each other, yet we're all experiencing essentially the same shit.
Yeah. The American police have a big problem. We have to fix it.
So I want to ask you, before you guys were experiencing the harassment and your son was murdered, what was your standing or your thoughts about the police? And had you had any interactions with them before?
Before, um, we were never anti-police. We knew that we had seen some things and had some bad things happen to us. We weren't breaking the law, or we weren't in trouble, nothing like that. It was just, we had been victimized by hate crimes, and there were no help and that kind of thing. And they, in one instance, added to it. But as for, we were never like anti, we were, we didn't know how corrupt they were. Like a lot of people now, I think that a lot of people are realizing how bad it is, but it has taken all of this, all these police killings and everything else they've been doing for people to realize. Unless you have this terrible experiences, it's extremely enlightening when they kill your loved one. No, we weren't, we were just average folks, had an average point of view about police, is the best way to put it.
Yeah. What would you say? I mean, you've been here a lot longer than me, and I know you've seen the same stuff repeating. And
Yes.
have you seen any changes? I know that Jessie hasn't got justice. Overall, do you think that anything's changed with, the police brutality and the killings? What's your
No,
experience?
no, it's gotten worse. It's absolutely gotten worse.
And I often think of like, okay, well, it's 4 years since my brother was killed. Then I kind of think, okay, so this many thousand were killed. And then right now I'm thinking, since if we go back to when your son was killed, those numbers are just
If you add it
ridiculous.
all up, this is absolutely a crisis. America has a police crisis, police murdering people and abusing people crisis. I mean, the numbers, and we're not even counting people that they kill in custody, that they play that off as something else. Those numbers aren't even counting them.
Yeah.
We know the numbers of the people that police kill they're growing every year, but they kill a lot more than we know.
Yeah, the in jail ones or the prisons that we don't know of,
and
then the ones
in custody, they could.
Yeah, they can cover them up even more so.
Much more so.
So I want to ask you also just your experience, your expertise. And I do tell people the families are the experts on this stuff. We're the ones who have lived through this. We have the life experience, but we also have a lot of knowledge. As we're navigating through this, we have to learn so much that we weren't even about before. So you are an expert, as well as these other families. I want to know what you think will start changing this, or what you would hope to see start happening with these issues.
Well, we definitely, like I say, it's a police problem. We need to have the laws changed. Qualified immunity has to go all across the country. I guess Colorado has done that to some extent. We don't, honestly, I mean, we're a part of the problem. I've always kind of thought is the over policing. I mean, there's just too many police and so many different police agencies, and that's got to be adding to all of it. I mean, defund the police, continue with that type of thing, and change the laws. Change the laws.
A lot, right? A lot needs to happen. And I'm going to be honest here, as I asked you that question, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, wow, even though like to me, it sounds very far-fetched because we've seen so many happening and we've lived this. So I agree with those things you mentioned that they need to start happening. I don't know when or if, but
yeah, there's an immense amount of money is spent on policing too. I forget the exact number now. I had it at one point, but billions, just so much money is spent on policing, and you know, it's too much.
Um,
A lot of that should be put into the communities to help people and housing and all of that type thing.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I do want to read this comment. Emily Gonzalez just reminding us, reminding her that we pay their salaries too. You know,
Yes.
that's a slap in the face. Gosh, I want to read, I'll hit one more comment real quick. This is another family sharing their experience that Patricia Perez talking about her Petty Perez. All of us trusted the police. Petty's mom said that if she would have ever thought that police could be so evil as to kill you for no reason, she said she would have raised Petty to avoid police and to watch out for them.
Yes. Yep. Didn't know.
Yeah, good to know. This reminds me, just want to share quickly. I see people, maybe not, intact families, but I see people, reminding their kids and teenagers, hey, not all police are bad. I see a lot of people reminding them, but I'm like, hey, don't forget to remind them not all police are good,
Yes.
uh, and
Very important. They can't,
can't trust.
just gotta be careful. Very careful.
See, Letitia Barron, until this shit happens to them, no one understands our pain of losing a family member from the police and the cover-ups. We know what's going on. Dismantle the police unions. Gosh.
Yes, the police unions. Oh, and often they're really just criminals run those.
Yep.
The unions. They're just downright criminals. So what are we going to get from the police when they have that running it? The unions.
Yeah, the police unions need to go. This brings me back to the thought, like, through all of this, who the hell do we call for help when it's the police? Who do we call when everyone that's going to be involved is they work together? That's their
They
people.
do. They stick together. Oh, all of them. They don't care how much harm has been done. They don't.
Gosh, yeah, they don't. So I do want to ask you too about your family members. His siblings. How is everybody coping? Just touch a little bit on that, on the other family members.
Okay, my oldest son, he about 6 months later he left the country. He lives in Canada now. He loves it up there. He didn't want to live in New York anymore because when he all he did was what was right. He testified in a case standing up for what's right. He saw police brutality. Actually, he was brutalized too, but that's what happens. His brother gets set up and killed. Then when he's at the vigil, he goes to leave. Oh, the reason why they went after him was because he was parked in the grass. That was the reason, they said.
Wow.
When they park in the grass all the time at that park, especially when they have basketball games on, and nothing's ever said. He was there with his friends. His car and a couple other cars were parked. It's off to the side in the grass. It's not bothering anybody. That was their reason for giving chase. He parked on the grass. No, that wasn't the reason. They were starting their police. They were doing their police terrorism to try to silence us because they murdered Jessie.
Immediately.
That's what they were doing.
Immediately.
So I did. There's so much details. You try to get them all in, best you can. But yeah, so he lives in Canada. Jared, who was very close to Jessie, they were like twins. They were just 13 months apart. And he's kind of really been kind of different than he was without his brother Jessie, because they were just always together. They were close, pretty much always together and everything. And Shania, she's in college. She's doing very well, and she's studying so that she can be in a position in life with a good college education. She's going to a really good college to fight police brutality, to fight injustice, even global warming, she says. She's a beautiful, wonderful girl. And Jesse was so protective of her. He was so good to her. He was the one out of the three boys. He's the one that catered to Shania, always did. He was just such a nice person and fun. The kids, you know, if Jesse was around the kids, everybody was having fun. He was funny. He was very funny.
And
So she missed him terribly. She was 11. Screen, he was always there for her until she was 11.
Is that her? Is this the picture of them right here, Kristine, that I stopped on?
Yeah, that's Shania and Jesse. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to get back
to
that picture.
There are so many pictures of Shania and Jesse. When I went through pictures, you know how you do that after you lose your loved one.
Yeah.
You get all the pictures out. You get everything out, trying to find every picture you have of them. And there are so many of him and Shania, Jesse and Shania. You know, up sledding on the ski hill, swimming at the beach. Just a wonderful, awesome person. We miss him terribly. And he did not deserve on any level what they did to him. And the way they slandered him in his death, terrible what they do. It's terrible.
Gosh. Yeah, as I wanted to stop back on that picture because you see the way she's looking up at her big brother. Yeah. You just see the love, and that's important. It's important for us to share, but also for other people to see that these are normal people. Jesse was a teenager. He was young. He had his whole life in front of him, and obviously, you know, a loving family, a close family.
Oh, yeah. Michael and I have been together for 29 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Goodness.
And there's, he was clowning when he was up sitting on top of there. He had everybody laughing. Very handsome.
Yes.
And he was really into his music too.
Gosh. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing these pictures. That's, you know, one thing that this show is about for me is actually showing who our loved ones really were, because many times we don't get to. People base it off of even just hearing that they were killed by police. A lot of people are going to assume badly of them. But, you know, we're their families and we're the ones that know them. And it's horrible what they do to them, not just by killing them physically, but after too. So.
Oh, yes. Oh, after what they do. Shameful, beyond shameful.
Beyond, absolutely. And just again, there are so many families out here, and there's so many families in the comments right now too. So let's see, Karen Sutherland, this right here, I have been saying the same thing. They need to carry their own insurance. So, okay. And she's saying what a handsome guy he was.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, actually, he reminds me of someone I know, of my partner's son. He's same 19 years old, a young kid, and so as I was, writing and making the flyer, sharing it, it just really reminded me of that kid. And he goes to the park still,
Yep.
We have Forced Trajectory. Great show. Great job, ladies. Thank you for sharing and speaking truth to power. And lots of comments in here, lots of support. I definitely
great.
Scroll through them. It's nice when we get that support. I know in the beginning, it's for us at least, I don't know many others, we didn't really have anybody. After time, we start connecting with families who have been the biggest support. I can't even recall. I think my first year was really fuzzy and stuff. I can't recall when or how I crossed paths with you, but I am very glad I did.
Yeah, I'm very glad to have met you and to know you. You've been such a big help in this movement. And this is just a wonderful idea of doing this, getting all these stories out every week. And there's plenty of them.
Yeah, doing one a week. I'm like, doing one a week, I need years to even just the families I know. And that's it's horrible, but it's just,
It's so important.
it absolutely is. We're on week 14. I haven't skipped a week. We're going, and I plan on going through this. I'm going to have my baby soon, but we're still going through this. Yeah, I find it really important for us to share stories, as, to me, I felt so unheard for the longest time. And sometimes I still
Yeah.
feel the same way,
Oh
people.
yeah. We can't get our stories out. They don't want them out. So we thank goodness for forums like this.
Yes, yes. And there are some other ones going on.
Mhm.
I personally, I have been, speaking to impacted families, one-on-one since my brother was killed. So to me, this feels like it feels needed. And I'm happy that you guys trust me too, to share with you guys.
Yes.
I want to hit this comment from Miss Grant. She says, it speaks volumes that his brother was testifying in another brutality case and lives outside the U.S. for safety. Canada provides asylum and safety for family survivors of police and city gang stalking, extrajudicial murder, and cover-ups. The fact that gang stalking continued after he died, friends and family report being followed and terrorized, tell you how this is highly corrupt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for summing that up. Because that really sums up, what we're sharing here. And I know it's hard for normal or unimpacted people to understand things like this, but to us it's natural, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's definitely.
People need to know. People that have been so fortunate as not to suffer a loss like this, and the horror that they do to your loved one and to you, or need to know. People need to know.
Yes, people definitely need to know. And I try to think how, because we were the same way. I didn't like cops, but I didn't know the extent. I had some bad experiences, but nothing to this extent. And my mom, she was friendly with cops, and now we're like, no, even drive by us. Nope, no, I'm not smiling at
No.
you. You're not gonna get a hello.
And they happen to be around an awful lot, don't they?
And I experienced, like you guys, a lot of the gang stalking right after, immediately after. And I don't know why we know why they attack us, but, just put into perspective, they're attacking people who are grieving, who have just lost more than they could understand. And when they do this to anybody, it's horrible. But then, they're doing this to women and kids too. It just shows, they have no limits.
The young, the old, disabled, you name it.
Yep, I've seen blind, handicap in different ways. It's just ridiculous. Okay,
is there any for their life? No, they don't. They're out there killing people. That's not fearing for your life.
I was talking about this yesterday with a friend. It's like, okay, you guys are armored. You guys have the bulletproof stuff. You guys have all your stuff. You got all your backup. You got.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then they're scared for their life. Okay, is there anything, we've been on about an hour. I know we got on a couple minutes late, so we're on, a little past 6, but is there anything else that you would like to share about Jessie, or just any final words that you want to give to the people watching?
Jessie knew his rights. He had studied the Constitution. He'd done it online. He took a course online. And if there's, he definitely would want justice for all. I guess that's what I'll just leave it at. Jessie would definitely want justice for all. He was that kind of a person, and let's keep fighting to get that.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. And we will never forget about Jessie, and everyone here is still leaving you lots of nice comments. And I want, just important for me to I didn't point back to it, but you know, when you said that the witness or that he said I didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's what someone at
That
the vigil told me. That she heard him say that. I'm not doing anything.
that really hits me at home, as I know my brother said that, like, I didn't do anything. And then as I have more families on here, even families that I already knew their stories, you know, when we get into the details, I often hear that, like, I didn't do anything, you know, and it just, they're killing our loved ones for what?
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay, Kristine, well, I do want to thank you for coming on and chatting with me, sharing Jessie's story with me, allowing me to have you in the space with me. And for people watching too, this, and for you to know, we run these live on Facebook, and then I do post them on YouTube. If anybody wants to catch any of the previous episodes, they're on the YouTube, which is connected to our Facebook. And yeah, just thank everybody that's been on viewing, everybody that will view later. We appreciate you guys, and let's keep sharing our loved ones' stories.
Yep.
All right,
Thank
Kristine.
you.
Well, you have a good night, and
you
I
too.
will see you on Facebook.
Sure
Okay,
will.
bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
We'll be back next week. Okay, take care, lady.